Good morning. I'm Bonnie Kisselstein, a retired teacher, and behind the camera is Joe Lafredo, and we're here to do another history program that we think you might enjoy. Right now we're on the Barge Canal Bridge, and I'm facing east in the bend, and to the left of me is Marble Street, and to the right of me is Water Street. Now through our video we're going to see a lot of changes in this area that from 1907. 1907 there was no water here. So we'll tell you a little more about that a little later on. Well, we're on the west side of the Barge Canal Bridge, and we're going to take a look at that before 1907 in a few minutes as we go down the video. Joe and I have decided to kind of give you a historical view of the canal, which many of you will find a lot different than what you previously had thought. We've got Water Street. Water Street's to your left, and you'll find out later on that Water Street went all the way over to the Red Mill Inn. So we'll see some pictures of that too. Lots and lots of changes in this area after 1907. Our program is not starting in 1907, but way back before our first permanent settler came in 1794. We're standing near the spot where it all began, the Seneca River. From earliest times, the river has played an important part in the area we now call Baldwinsville. It was called Stihaha, or stones in the water, by the Native Americans who fished and hunted here. At that time, the river here had a 7 or 8 foot waterfall or rift in the middle, hindering navigation. That rift was the only place for miles where travelers could cross the river north and south. John McCary settled here around 1794 after he saw an opportunity to earn a living by fording settlers going west around the rapids. The area became known as McCary's Rifts. As more people settled around his cabin, the area became known as Macville or Maxville. Early historians don't agree on the spelling. One settler that McCary helped was Dr. Jonas Baldwin and his wife, who were leaving Little Falls to head to Ovid, where he owned land. Betsy did not want to leave her established home, so Dr. Baldwin promised that he would buy anything along the way that she liked. While McCary was moving their belongings across the rifts, the couple toured the north side and fell in love with it. Jonas kept his promise and bought most of the north side. They did go on to Ovid and later to Onondaga Hill, but by 1807, Baldwin was persuaded to come here to develop his land. He received permission from the state to build a canal along the north side at North Shore and erect a dam and a toll bridge. Now over in the cemetery, where we were first looking at the rifts, over in the cemetery is where McCary's log cabin was, and his tombstone is over there, as is the Baldwin tombstone. Looking here at a map by Robinson, an early map by Robinson, you will see where the Baldwin Canal went. It went from River Street, which wasn't River Street at that time, underneath the bridge that we can walk under now. That was the Baldwin Canal Bridge, all along through to where we now have Dunkin' Donuts and on out into Lock Street. So you can pretty much see that blue line on the map shows pretty much where the Baldwin Canal was. It brought a lot of development here. It produced a lot of water power and lots of industry, lots of mills. At one time we were the largest flour producing area in the United States. That's before grain was grown out west. The area on the north side became known as Columbia, and after the bridge was built, it was called Baldwin's Bridge. By the way, that was a toll bridge. As I said before, Baldwin got permission from the state to do this. And then when we got our first post office in 1817, we received the name Baldwinsville. And we have many, many, many pictures of the Baldwin Canal in operation. Tobacco wagons. Tobacco was a very big product. The Tucker boat is on the canal. Frazee Mill, the Seneca Mill, There were basically 5 mills in Baldwinsville. There's an excursion boat on the Baldwin Canal heading towards the resorts on Onondaga Lake. There's another whole story for you if you don't know about those. But very, very important for a long time until the boats got too big. So they went on to later on by 1817, the government proposed to build a different canal. Now that was the Erie Canal. Now Joe and I are here to dispel the idea that we are part of the original Erie Canal, and we're going to show you a lot about it. There's a map in front of you that shows the dotted line, blue dotted lines are where the original Erie Canal went. It did not go through Baldwinsville. It went through Jordan. It started in Syracuse. Well, started in east of here, but then it went through Syracuse and Jordan, Elbridge, Port Byron, and then later on in an improved Erie Canal, another aspect of the Erie Canal, it went on up through Liverpool. Onondaga Lake Parkway was the Oswego Canal, and up through Phoenix and up to Oswego. So there were a lot of changes in it. The original, though, was completed in 1825, and it was only 4 feet deep and 40 feet wide. Boats could carry 30 tons of cargo. But between 1824 and 1890, it was enlarged several times. But none of these went through Baldwinsville. Now this will be amazing to a lot of people who think this is the Erie Canal. We have the beginning of the Barge Canal. Now we call it the Erie Barge Canal because it's the third improvement on the Erie Canal. But at one time was just called the Barge Canal. When the other canals became too small for large barges, the state decided to enlarge the canal using a different route, one that included the major lakes and rivers along the way. Between 1905 and 1918, the Barge Canal was created at a cost of over $100 million. This made a dramatic change in Baldwinsville. The state took over ownership of 65 buildings. And the picture in front of you shows a lot of lines. I realize you can't read it, but know that all those lines were buildings that had to be either demolished or moved when they changed and put the canal in. Half of Water Street and one side of Marble Alley became the canal channel. All of the buildings were taken out. Most of them were moved to nearby locations and are still in use today. There's a cartoon by John Stanton showing what it must have been like. It must have been a nightmare of the bedlam that resulted in the moving. Now, the following are some of the more significant buildings that were moved. We had the Brown Block. Soon after this photo of the Brown Block was taken, it was moved with rollers westward down Water Street. During that time, the right-hand side of the building was removed. As you can see you'll see in the couple pictures. One has the right-hand side, the other one doesn't have it. The reason for moving it was the raising of the approach to the new bridge that would go over the canal, as the one we were standing on in the beginning. The spot where it was located is now vacant. The building is still there, by the way. The business located there at that time was a woodworking establishment run by Seth Brown. Also seen in the photo is a railroad spur that ran along Water Street to the Mac Miller Candle Company. And that was going west. It was down the end down towards the cemetery. We'll show you a picture of that. Now, Mac Miller Candle Company, half of Water Street and one side of Marble Street became the canal channel. All the buildings in this area were taken out. Most of them were moved to nearby locations and, as I said, are still in use today. The largest loss was the Mac Miller Candle Factory, shown here. It was at the end of Water Street, back towards the cemetery. It moved to Syracuse when the management could not find a suitable place to relocate here. A railroad spur ran west and east along Water Street in both directions, both sides of the bridge, the current bridge. Couldn't now because it's gone. It's not water, but But anyways, the railroad spur ran, and it helped take the products from the candle company and other companies to the railroad depot, which was located where the parking lot is behind the current Beeville Diner. Though that we'll show you that. The building, which stands on the east corner of Water and Syracuse Street and is presently Canal Walk Cafe, had, before the canal came through, a location diagonally across the corner to the same over where the lock bridge, the bridge is right now, on the west side. It stood there. They moved it across the street and turned it around, and removed some another building in the process to make room for it. The hotel in the middle of the picture is with the tower on it, was called the Quinlan Hotel. It also had other names, and it was moved down Marble Street, where it eventually became a tenement house and then had to be torn down. But you can basically see that railroad track running right through. And notice how wide Water Street is. When we had the digging, it took away at least two-thirds of that. And then the other picture shows the canal, or the Quinlan Hotel, much closer on the side, and you can see the other buildings that were there, which also had to all be removed. Now here's another one showing the railroad. You can see the railroad track went down through to the river to the bridge. Now that bridge, if you picture yourself going across the bridge, the current bridge where the dam is, and look to the east, you see some pillars in there. Well, that's because that was the railroad bridge. Now that had to be removed, so there was a lot of protest. The railroad people they weren't happy that they were going to have to remove the railroad and the bridge. So this following picture is the railroad engine. They didn't win. So anyways, we still have the pillars, no bridge, of course, because it's now gone. Now some other buildings that were removed were the carriage shop. There's a picture of a carriage shop. And then we also had the PEC coal yard. That was on the corner of Water and Canton Street. That had to be removed. And after several years, PEC moved, because of the canal being built, he had to move to the north side. And of course, at that time they were heating with coal. Now we have, they had to build the bridge, and since the bridge, which is our current bridge, barge canal bridge, I should say, since the bridge would have to be built on the street line, a temporary road, including the trolley tracks, were placed on the west of the crossover. This is the chief reason for the pushing back of the Brown Block, which was the building that they had to move. The temporary road, in effect, passed over what had once been the basements of Baker and Tappan's store, Billings, Sloan, and Holohan's livery and blacksmith shop. A road for wagons and teams, as you can see in the picture, were also built alongside the trolley tracks and with a sidewalk for pedestrians. Now this is not where the bridge is. This is west of that, where you're seeing in the picture. The moving of the trolley tracks and the railroad made possible for the steam shovel to cut through Syracuse Street, remove the dirt, and begin building the bridge abutments. By August, nearly all of the buildings along the pathway of the canal had been removed. Now we're going to some fascinating pictures. By the way, we have the state to thank for most of these pictures. They documented very well what went on in this area. Here's several pictures. So the first one shows, if you look very carefully at the left-hand side, you see that we have what is now the Red Mill Inn. That was the Mercer Mill on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, the building with the looks like a house is on the corner of Canton and Water Street, and all those buildings were in the middle. Now that is where the current lock chamber is, so they had to remove all of those. And the next picture shows like that again, same spot, but with some of it removed. And was taken by at the top of the candle factory on November 9th, 1908. Now the next one shows a little bit more going on. Same spot, another picture of the digging. Now building the lock system was a tremendous task, extending from Canton Street to Syracuse Street, and elevating the descending chamber was 382 feet long by 45 feet wide. A 15-foot roadway between the north wall and the power canal permitted access to the paper mill. Now there was the paper mill where Paper Mill Island is. The canal took half of Water Street. The south side of the channel runs along the center of the original street. Now get that, so the south side of the channel now runs along where the center of the original street was. Our next picture is when it all really began digging. The first dirt was taken out of the canal path on June 8th, 1908, and there's a picture of the official picture of the first shovelful. Scott Brothers and Falconer had the contract to construct Section 45 of the new waterway, reaching from the foot of Downer Street to the Paper Mill Point. Today, that's where Paper Mill Island is located. Although this seems to be a fairly short distance, it included a set of locks, a bridge, a dike, and a long retaining wall. The work started at the eastern end of with the huge 30-ton steam shovel, and a train of small dump cars, as you'll see in the picture, were carrying the dirt away. The excess material provided fill for the swampy riverbank opposite Meadow Street. Now that's the area now, if you drive down Meadow Street behind the Catholic Church, that was all swamp. And the dirt that came out of the canal chamber, or the canal channel, was moved there, dumped there. During the canal construction, the river was held back by an earthen barrier just west of the upper gates, as you can see in this picture. By the way, that steam-driven pump was made by Morris Machine Works. I'm sure many of you have heard that. If you haven't, read some about it. Very, very, very important company. But anyways, it removed the seepage water. The pictured here in the back, you can see the building with the windows. That was the canal factory. So again, we are looking at the canal lock chamber. And here's some more pictures of the digging. Here's a picture of the steam shovel. And in the background, you're looking at Lock Street, because the building with the windows was the Penn Spring Works. No longer there, of course, but that's so you're looking across the river in the back, which you can't see, but the front is the canal dig. And here's some more. We got the east side of the canal path. In the background, you see what is now Canal Walk Cafe at 23 Syracuse Street. And that, remember, was on the other side. It was moved, turned around and moved. Here's another one showing the construction. And here's another one along the east side of Water Street. And another one showing some more digging. Lots and lots of pictures, fortunately, that the state took. Another one of the steam shovel. And here's the cranes, the James Stewart cranes that were in the, and that was facing, well, it's hard to say which way that one is facing, but I think it's facing east. And here's another one. You can see, if you look at the steam shovel in the canal chamber, you can see way in the back, you can see the candle company again. So again, that's facing west. Now, on May 9th, 1910, Lock 24 became the first lock to open on the barge canal. It was used to pass the state dredge with its accompanying houseboat and scows. Since gate operating machinery had not yet been installed, a horse was used to open the gates, and chain hoists were used to open the valves. They worked stiffly, but the lock chamber filled smoothly, and the operation was satisfactory. Picture here is a ceremonial picture of the inspector taken, and that's the official. That's the inspector. Now that is taken actually 1913. And here are some more modern pictures of the canal in operation. In the not too distant past, many barges could be seen traveling our waters. Now this is our lock with Mercer Mill, and in the background is the paper mill. But notice the barges. It was not too well in the 50s, especially, and on up a little bit later than that. Lots and lots of barges traverse the water. And here's a good colored picture of a barge with the tugs. And we had the gate with the pleasure boats. So as I said, these are on our more modern. Here's another one with shows a better picture of the paper mill, which stood right where Paper Mill Island is. Now you know where Paper Mill Island name comes from. And a few other pictures of more modern usage that we have in our past. There is the picture of the buoys used to line the banks here before we had all of this, the visitor center and everything. But they were there frequently, and we would see them in the winter, of course, after they closed the lock. And a few others. We've got the Amita going underneath. And the photo taken in 2010 for Barge into Baldwinsville celebration and the 100th anniversary of the opening of the Barge Canal in Baldwinsville. Today, the Erie Barge Canal goes through Baldwinsville. It can hook up to waterways that can get travelers all over the world. But remember, this is part of the expanded Erie Canal, not the original hand-dug canal that was started in Rome in June of 1817. And there's more pictures of other pictures that we're just going to put in. But remember that canals have always been very important. Baldwin Canal got us on the map originally, and then the expanded Erie Canal, now known as the Erie Barge Canal, is very much a part of Baldwinsville and changed our looks significantly. And Baldwinsville is a wonderful place to live. We hope you all enjoy it. Well, Joe and I hope you've enjoyed this program. As I said in the beginning, Joe and I are both retired teachers who aren't really retired. We're kind of semi-retired. We just love spreading history. And this is, we started out doing videos way back in, I think, about 2008. We did the walking tour of Baldwinsville. We've done one of Female Charitable. We did one of the National Register. Probably some other ones in there. And this is our very last one. Joe is retiring from PAC Channel, is volunteering at PAC Channel in the end of June. I'll probably keep on going as long as my brain is active, but I just love doing local history and spreading it. As I said, Baldwinsville we both feel that Baldwinsville is a wonderful place to live, and has given us a lot of good years in our lives. So enjoy.